Okay, Brenda, are you good to get started? All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Improve Your Outlook with Brenda Bailey-Hughes. This is part of our Get That Job webinar series. My name is Jordan Neal, and I am the career librarian here at the Champaign Public Library, and I am your host for this evening's webinar, so thank you all for joining us. Before I introduce our speaker, I wanted to mention some library information that we will reiterate at the end of the webinar, as well as some webinar details. As you may know or have heard, the library has reopened with some modifications to our services. I invite you to visit our website, champaign.org, for more information. So yeah, we're now available to answer your questions in person and virtually. However you would like, you can chat with us through our website. You can email us at librarian@champaign.org. We are still offering our Book a Librarian service virtually if you need any help at home. To request a session, visit champaign.org/bookalibrarian to fill out a request form. We're also still offering our curbside service if you wanted to pick up any library items, or you can now come into the library, whichever you'd prefer. Again, visit our website, champaign.org/curbside for more information. And as always, our e-library is always open where you can enjoy ebooks, movies, and more using your Champaign Public Library card, or you can sign up for a virtual library card through our website for instant access. Finally, I would like to briefly go over a few features available to you that might help during this particular webinar. Depending on your computer or device, if you take a look at your Zoom window, you can hopefully see audio settings at the bottom left of the screen. You can adjust your audio settings, like changing your speaker by clicking or tapping on the upward arrow next to your speaker. Moving to the center bottom of your screen, you will see a chat and raised hand option. Clicking on the chat will open or close a chat box on the right side of your Zoom window, or sometimes it displays on the middle of your screen, and you can drag it around, again, depending on your computer or device. We invite you to use the chat to ask questions or leave comments for the presenter. I think we're going to have some activities a little bit later as well, and the answers will be shared with the rest of the participants. You also have the option to raise hand to receive assistance. You could use this if you have any technical difficulties or you'd like to speak and ask a question, and we can unmute you if you would prefer not to type in the chat. Our presenter plans to answer questions at the end of the presentation, so please feel free to ask your questions, and we'll try our best to get to all of them. So without further delay, I would like to introduce our presenter, Brenda Bailey-Hughes. I do invite you to read her entire biography within our event description, but long story short, she is bringing us a wealth of experience. She is an award-winning faculty member at the nationally ranked Kelley School of Business at Indiana University, where she teaches professional communication and leadership courses. She is the author of 9 courses in LinkedIn Learning, which is a resource that we also have here at the Champaign Public Library, including courses that I have certainly enjoyed. We're so glad that she's joined us this evening. So without further delay, Brenda, you can go ahead and take over.
Great, thank you so much, Jordan. So good to be here, and welcome to everyone. I'll share my screen now, and there we go. I want to introduce, some of you may already know this artist. He's one of my favorites. His name is Leonid Astromov, and he is an impressionist whose work always reminds me that if we can find just a little bit of color, even in our life when it's raining, it has this sort of cascading effect into all of our life. And that's really the notion behind improving your outlook, is that we find that little bit of good that's going on even on our rainiest days, and we work to have that cascade in our lives. So let me start out by telling you the story of these 2 women that I know. We'll call them Nellie and Paula, and they are both from the same neighborhood. They work at the same place for the same boss. They do the same job. They have similar family structures. They're in similar socioeconomic situations. They have similar health issues and non-issues. And yet when you talk to these 2 women, if you talk to Paula, positive Paula, she always has something good to say. There's something fun going on. There's something she's happy about. There's something she's grateful for. And you talk to negative Nellie, And she'll tell you how bad the traffic was getting in here this morning, and how awful the weather is, and how stupid the last management decision was, and how boring the project is. Even though their lives look equal on the outside, one looks at the glass as sort of half empty, and one looks at the glass as half full. And the interesting thing is that their lives are so similar that it's not about their life, it's about their perception of life, their perspective on it, how they choose to see through which lens they choose to look at the world. Of course, there is good and bad in all of our lives, but which do we choose to focus on? That gets to be the question a little bit here tonight. Let's do a quick thought experience. I want you to take a look around your room, like maybe even stand up and do a full, I don't want to turn all the way around because you won't be able to hear me talking to the microphone, but do a full spin around, and as you're spinning slowly, find everything your eyes glance on that is blue. Ready? Go. Find all the things that are blue. Okay, now, if I were to ask you to chat in the chat room, tell me all the things that are green, what would happen? Most people kind of stumble when I say green, and they're like, well, what? I don't know, I was looking for blue, right? But does that mean there are no green things in your sphere? Turn around, there's probably a lot of green things in your vision. There's probably a lot of green things, but when you were focused on finding the blue, you didn't even see the green, even though they are very much there. We see what we choose to see, even when there are both blue and green. We see the bad if we choose to look at the bad. We see the good if we choose to look at the good, even though there are probably both good and bad. And that's one of the things I want to establish here at the front of our conversation, is that when we talk about having a positive outlook or having a positive perspective on life or being positive, we're not talking about ignoring problems. Please don't hear that as what being an optimist or a positivist is. Positive Paula, in my story at the beginning there, she sees that there are problems, but unlike Nellie, who is devastated by the problems, who is confident the problems are unsolvable and devastating, Positive Paula takes okay, there's a legitimate problem here. Let's figure out what we're going to do about it. And she takes it as a challenge, and she takes it as a problem to be solved. Certainly, our beloved Mr. Rogers wasn't afraid to look problems square on and talk about them. You know, he did a great job of not asking people to suppress their feelings, of not ignoring challenges. He didn't willfully disregard problems. To the contrary, he faced them head on, but with this perspective that these problems were not insurmountable, and that the good in people outweighed the bad, and that we could indeed communicate better by listening. So we've had some great role models in our lives, these TV icons like this, but I also think we all know that we can see things multiple ways from these pictograms that we play with, these illusions, these visual illusions that people play around with. So, you know, do you see a duck here, or do you see a rabbit? And in this one, do you see the old woman or the young woman? Do you see a woman at a vanity on the right, or a skeleton? Or as Oscar Wilde says, do you see the optimist who sees a donut, or are you the pessimist who just sees a hole? That's kind of what we're talking about. We all have a choice to see things. One of the great writers of all times on this very subject wrote that one's ultimate freedom is the ability to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Your ultimate freedom is the ability to choose your attitude in any given set of circumstances. Does anyone know who wrote this by any chance? Does this author sound familiar to you? It's Viktor Frankl, who was a psychologist and a survivor of Auschwitz. So if this man who lived through horrors that you and I can't probably even imagine can say that my ultimate freedom is to choose my attitude in any given set of circumstances, then I think certainly we should be able to choose our attitude in any given set of circumstances. One last piece that kind of speaks to this idea in the Cherokee tradition is this idea that of the little boy talking to the grandfather and saying, I feel like I have these two wolves battling in me. One, we could, good and evil, we could consider it like the positive and the negative, which isn't really good and evil, but you know, we'll use it. And I'm curious, they're duking it out inside of me all the time. I've got this part of me that knows I want to be positive, but there's this part of me that's just always finding the blue or the green, the negative. How do I know which one is going to win this battle? And the grandfather says, it's the one you feed. So our discovery tonight is, how do we feed that positive wolf? How do we find the green in a blue world some days? How do we find our positive Paula instead of our negative Nellie? And not only how do we do it, but why would we do it? Because even though I'm convinced we can, I'm not here to tell you it's going to be easy. It's going to be some hard work to change our mindset. So what's the benefit to doing that? Why bother with the hard work instead of just thinking in our negative way? Well, there's health benefits to it. There's a book by Kim Cameron, who is here and pictured as his TED Talk. In one of his books on positivity, he talks about he identifies over 40 different health benefits that are consistently and compellingly supported by research and evidence. And these health benefits are linked to having a positive outlook. So our health is one great reason to make that change. Our brains work better. We might be more creative when we use positive thinking. When people's brains are hooked up and they're going through MRIs, when we ask them to think of a positive future, more areas of their brains light up in the MRI than if we ask them to think about negative or even just neutral futures. So as all those different aspects of your brain are popping on and they're firing up, surely we're getting more creative. So health benefits, more creative. Also, in a study out of UC Berkeley on managers, they found that managers who had a more positive outlook on life made more accurate decisions. They were more interpersonally effective, which was infectious to other people. By the way, negativity can be infectious too. So we really have to think about that when we're choosing that attitude. And performance, our actual performance can be affected by positivity. A really interesting research study published in the Sports Psychology, Journal of Sports Psychology, looked at coaches who have their athletes review video of themselves. Some coaches ask athletes to watch videos where they got it wrong. They said, well, look right here where you kind of messed up your shot. Or, in golf, they watch their swing when they don't get it right. And then other coaches say, I want you to watch the videos of when you got it right. The athletes who review the video of themselves getting it right see a bigger leap in their performance than the people who watch the video, record the videos of themselves getting it wrong. Pretty compelling reasons. Our performance could get better. And another this is, by the way, is Lily King. She's an Olympian swimmer, but she's also from Indiana University where I teach. So I've never had Lily in class, but I love her story. And her dad was interviewed one time about her, and he said, you know what? She kind of hit this point when he was being asked, when did Lily's performance really take off? And he connected it. He said she connected positive thinking with positive performance, and it never really left her after that. Another interesting, while I'm looking at swimmers, another interesting swimming story is that there was a study where coaches asked their swimmers to do a lap at a certain time. And then they timed them, and when those swimmers came in, the coaches defeated the swimmers. They told them that they did not meet their time, even if they had to lie, okay? Some of the swimmers did meet their time, some of them didn't. It didn't matter. The coach told them all, you didn't make the time you were aiming for. People who had previously taken surveys and were rated as higher in positivity, when they got back in the pool to do the next lap, they got faster after being defeated. The people who had rated themselves and had 360s and were rated as rather less positive, when they got back in the pool for another lap, they slowed down. So our performance is affected by our positivity levels, and we may be more resilient to the bumps and bruises that we're going to inevitably experience in life. We may be more resilient and bounce back better from those things if we have some positivity in our life. So those are the reasons why, but now how? Now this gets really interesting, I think. I've broken the hows into a couple of categories that I want to introduce you to. One is, how do we decrease the negative thoughts? So sort of starve the negative wolf that lives inside of us. How do we feed the positive wolf? So how do we increase our positive thinking? How can we use the environment that's all around us and the relationships that we're in to help boost our positivity? And then finally, I want to talk this evening about these sort of special circumstances that I think matter when we're talking about positivity. So let's start with some of the strategies related to decreasing negative thinking. For each of these strategies, I've pulled them from the literature in positive psychology, of the field of positive psychology. And then in preparation for my LinkedIn course, which one of them is on being positive, I had lots of students and friends and family members test out different ones of these tactics that I had given them. They all had to test it for 30 days. And then I did an intensive interview with all of these different people, about 100 different people that tested different strategies. And the ones that really seem to work for people are the ones that made the cut and that I'm going to share with you tonight. So one of the ways to decrease your negative thoughts is to play worst, best, and most likely case. So if you find that one of your negative thoughts is just like, oh, something's going to go wrong, something's going to go wrong, it's going to be awful, it's going to be awful, and you can't get that thought just out of your head, go ahead and play what is the worst thing that could possibly happen. Sometimes we just have to exercise that out of ourselves so it quits brewing. And sometimes we realize that the worst case scenario that we dreamt up is almost laughable because it's so improbable. So I worked with a student recently who was sitting for her CPA exam. And so her whole career is kind of balanced on the hinges of passing her CPA exam. And I said, okay, and she was just worried about it. And I said, what is the worst case scenario? And she's like, I don't pass. And I said, okay. And what's the worst case scenario if you don't pass? And she said, I don't know. I can't pay my bills. I have to go live in mom's basement. I was like, okay, could you survive living in mom's basement if it comes to that? And she's laughed. She's like, okay, I really don't think it's going to come to that. But even if it did, I would be okay. So she played out the worst case. And then I said, what's the best case? Well, I get the top score of all CPA exam students that year, and hundreds of firms make me amazing offers. And I said, what's the most likely case? And she said, most likely, I'll pass, but just barely. And that's okay. So that's worst, best, most likely. That might work for some of you. We have lots of research that tells us social media really has some hampering effects on us. So if you find yourself in sort of a negative space, it might be time to take a social media sabbatical. Refuting the negative is when you hear those negative voices, you say, almost like you're a lawyer, like, no, here's the evidence. Here's what the opposing counsel says to that negative thought, and you just bring on the evidence to refute that case. You can challenge your story. You can force yourself to, this one's especially true if your negative thinking is about someone else. You could start challenging your story by trying to find innocent reasons or that they might act the way they do, or assuming positive instead of negative intent about them. So for example, if your boss seems to be ignoring you, in fact, you sent some emails last week and you didn't get any response, and you said hi in the parking garage and you didn't get any response, so you're thinking, oh no, I'm about to get fired. That's worst case thinking, right? That's assuming ill will. In the chat room, type 5 reasons. Just type one and somebody else will type another one. Just go. What are 5 innocent reasons that aren't negative that could explain your boss's behavior? Who's in the chat? Let's see. What's another reason that has no ill will? And Jordan, I'm not sure I can see chat. Oh, there we go. Yes, we can. Thank you, Carolyn. She has a lot on her mind. Yep. What else? Give me another reason. She's busy. Yeah, there we go. Anything else? She didn't hear you. Right. There we go. Okay, so you get it. So those are plausible reasons, at least for not saying hi in the parking lot, right? I'm not sure why she's ignoring my emails all the time, but that's perfect. Thank you. She just received some bad news. Yeah, see, Carolyn's got the hang of this game. 5 innocent reasons. That's one of the ways. So that's the decreasing negative thoughts. Let's look at how we increase our positive thoughts. We can keep a gratitude journal. Tons of research that says if you just write down 3 things a day that you're grateful for, you will continue to feel the health benefits, the creativity benefits, the interpersonal benefits long after you even quit doing the gratitude journal. You could, one of the people that I used as a test subject for my class took the gratitude journal to a more creative level, and she made a gratitude portfolio, and it was a box full of art and symbols and tangible objects that represented her gratitude, and she would just look through that box when she started to feel herself getting negative. Balancing work and play. We talk all the time about our work ethic, our work ethic, our work ethic, but not very many of us think about our play ethic. If we're not balancing that, it's easy to fall into a negative space. And finding joy while you work. We all have those tasks on our desk that we just cannot stand the thought of doing. But if we can figure out more interesting, fun ways to do them, more joyful ways to do those tasks, sometimes that can get us out of a negative space. Oh, this is just a photograph. I had this sorting exercise I needed to do to categorize some data. And oh, I was just dreading sitting there on my computer looking at thousands of data points in an Excel sheet. It just sounded horrible, and I was getting really negative about it. So finally I thought, wait a minute, let me just go to a big room with huge whiteboards and Post-it notes, and let me sort this data in a more tactile, colorful, fun way. And it worked. I felt a lot better about it. I mentioned that we can use our environment to help us stay positive. You can have environmental triggers. So I'm a tea drinker, a hot tea drinker. And so I use the dipping of my tea bag. As my tea bag saturates in that water and steeps, that's my moment. That's my trigger to go, oh, I'm going to stand here and just focus on some good things going on for a moment. I'm going to find those colorful parts of life for a moment. It could be a certain doorway that every time you go through that doorway, that's your trigger. There's an app called Lotus Bud, and it just has these chimes that periodically randomly chime into your phone, and that's your jolt, your reminder that, oh yeah, I want to choose to have a positive outlook, and this is my reminder to do that. Sometimes we just need to change our physical space, declutter a little, put flowers or candles in a space that perk it up for you. And taking movement breaks, even using a standing desk or just taking a short walk, has had some real interesting connections to lifting our mood and lifting our outlook, as it were. We can use our relationships to nurture positivity. We can do that by making sure we are showing at least we are expressing our gratitude or our appreciation to people 3 times as often as we are giving them negative feedback or constructive criticism. We can practice what's called active and constructive responses. That's when someone shares good news with us, we are really active and constructive about our response. We don't just feel jealous about good news. We say, oh, that is so interesting. Tell me more about it. And then we almost interview them like we're a news journalist wanting to know more and more about their good news. And in that way, we're nurturing that relationship, and we're nurturing the positivity in ourselves through others. We can leverage our own strengths and those of others. As soon as we start building to people's strengths, we start finding more positivity in our lives. And of course, we can engage in random acts of kindness. There's all sorts of lists. Google it. If you can't think of a random act of kindness to do, there are lots and lots of lists out there that could guide you. Okay, so that's all when the work is within. But a lot of people, when I'm doing live workshops like this, will say, okay, but Brenda, here's the deal. I'm not the one with a negative outlook. My partner is, my roommate is, my spouse is, my colleague is. Okay, so then what do we do? When it's somebody else that's negative and their negativity is kind of bringing us down. Here are a couple of tips. Sometimes that person just needs someone to empathize with them. So if we can just say, yeah, it sounds like you've had a horrible day, and I can't even imagine how frustrated that must have been for you. That's sometimes all they need to go, all right, somebody gets it, now I can move on. Sometimes that doesn't work. And then we may need to try to redirect the negative Nelly. Sometimes I will say, yeah, that was really frustrating. What good came out of it? Or what could you learn from it? So we're trying to redirect sometimes. If neither of those work, sometimes you just got to distance yourself from Debbie Downer. I don't know if anybody remembers SNL here, if you're old enough to remember the Saturday Night Live sketches with Debbie Downer, but there she is. So, all right. That was a quick introduction to 21 strategies. 21 because that's how many seemed really effective in my sample work, and 21 because it takes 21 days to build a habit. You can take those 21 strategies and just start working with them. Just pick a different one each day for 21 days and see what happens. So we're going to shift gears. I've given you all 21 strategies. I want you to play with these a little bit right now. So the way I'm going to do that is introduce a scenario, and then I want you to pick one of the 21 strategies that you think would help you if this were your situation, and tell us maybe what that would look like. So you're welcome to use either the chat to share your response, or just raise your hand and Jordan will take you off mute and you can share out loud with us, and we'd love to hear from you. So, oh, I didn't get through 21. I got ahead of myself there, didn't I? Okay, sorry, 3 more. So I got so excited about the scenarios. So the last 3, I've been assuming that, for example, positive Paula and negative Nellie, their lives were basically the same life, and it was just that negative Nellie chose to look at the bad. But sometimes our lives aren't equally difficult. Sometimes life is rough. Sometimes horrible things happen, and then what do we do? Then what does positivity look like? Well, remember, it does not look like pretending that you're positive when you're not. That's not true positivity, you know, the fake smile and the I'll just grin and bear it. No, not at all. True positivity means you're going to need some time to grieve over issues and setbacks in your life sometimes. But during that time, try to avoid extremist language that sounds like this. This is the worst day of my life. The worst. You get one worst day. You know, we can't say that every day because only one is the worst day. Or this always happens to me. Does it always happen to you, or has it happened consistently? That when we start using extreme language, we take what's already a bad situation and we make it worse. And the last strategy is focusing on things other than that event or series of events that really are bad, but also recognizing that you might be doing meaningful work in your life, that you have meaningful, significant relationships in your life, that you're engaged with life in other ways, and just not letting our focus become too zoomed in. Those are the last 3 strategies. Now we get to do the scenarios that I promised you. Okay, so you like I said, you can either raise your hand or just type in the chat room. The 21 strategies are listed out here at the bottom, but here's the scenario you're choosing a strategy for. You tend to think somewhat negatively about your cousin. You can substitute sister, aunt, brother, neighbor, whatever. You love this person dearly, but oh, she can be such a drama queen, and she has such trivial interests in life. If you have to listen to her describe one more episode of Real Housewives, you might just lose it. By the way, no offense to the Real Housewives watchers out there. We all can enjoy a Real Housewife once in a while. All right, in the chat room, or raise your hand so Jordan can call on you. Which of these strategies seems like it would work well for that scenario, and what would that look like? No right or wrong answer. There's a lot of strategies that would work for this. Which one do you think it would work for? Distancing yourself. Yeah, that's a good call. Let's just create some space, She just might not be the right person for me to spend a lot of time with. Anybody else want to try another one? What else might work well? Thank you, Carolyn. And changing the subject. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. That's that redirecting. Like, okay, I'm going to try to redirect you, negative Nellie. All right, let's try another one. Your company is reducing personnel by 30%, and you just got the news that yours is one of the jobs being eliminated. Which of these strategies might work well? Yeah, okay, thank you. I think this is a perfect time to let yourself grieve a bit. Losing a job that's in those top 3 stressors in life. So let's grieve it a bit before we just push through and move on. Let yourself work through those stages of grief that are very real and very connected to job loss. Anybody else have a strategy that you think might help you through a job loss? Yeah, our whole life isn't just a job. It feels like it when it gets torn out from under us, and there's all that fear and concern and worry and self-doubt that comes with it. But there are still other parts of us besides our career, besides our job. There are those relationships. There's other things that we're engaged in. There's other hobbies and activities, and those matter too. So if we can kind of focus on those, at least while we're parallel focusing on the career search, that's really great. Thank you. And focus on your strengths. Yes, absolutely. This is a great time to find your strengths and to focus on those relationships. All right, last one, and then we're going to move to our final activity for the evening. You had 3 interviews in the last few weeks because you lost your job and you needed to go interview. And you thought they'd each gone very well, but today, boom, 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 all 3 rejection letters. You're feeling devastated. What do you do? And a vacation, yes. Focus on your strengths, that you know you have them, absolutely. Any other ideas that might work well here? I love avoid extreme language in this one. It would be really easy for me to catch myself saying, I am never going to get a job. I'm always going to get rejected. I'm such, like I could hear the extreme language creeping in there. So I would avoid that. Anything else on this one? Network, yeah. Yeah, refute your negative thoughts and assumptions. Yeah, Carolyn, I think that would work really well. Other Carolyn, I guess you're not allowed in here if your name's not Carolyn. No, I thought from Kay. Kay piped in too. Thank you, Kay. So yeah, that refuting the negative thoughts. So if the negative thought says, you are never going to get a job, you have no skills that anybody wants, you can go, wait a minute, let's look at evidence. I have this skill set, and this skill set, and I can go on to LinkedIn sites that say these are in the top demanded skills by employers right now. I do have the skills people want. So we just pull evidence to say that is not truth when I'm having those negative thoughts. Great work. Okay, so you've been exposed to 21 strategies. You started playing with them a little bit. Now we're going to put them to work in a sort of fun way. So Jordan has agreed, and the library is going to play along with this. They're such good sports about this idea that I'm going to ask you to think of an initiative or an action that the Champaign Public Library could do that would help your local community or the patrons, the customers of the library. How could they help those people keep a more, that's you, like how could they help you and other people that use the library services? How could they help you keep a more positive outlook? So that's your initiative. Now you have some parameters. One is you only have a $100 budget. So whatever you come up with, it has to be manageable at $100, and it can only require 2 staff hours. The reality is Jordan's probably going to be the one who has to do this. So she's not going to be happy with us if we come up with these initiatives that take hundreds of staff hours. So those are your parameters. Once you've thought that through, don't put anything in the chat room yet, but eventually you're going to give your initiative a short, catchy name. And in the same text with the short, catchy name, but put that first, the short, catchy name, then give us a concise description of what this initiative would be. A $100 minimal staffing hour initiative or action that the library can take to help boost the attitude and help others improve their outlook. So don't type anything in chat. I'm going to be quiet for 3 minutes and let you think of it. And then I'm going to say type. And everybody type, 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 type when I say type. Not yet. I don't want anybody's ideas to influence others. We're going to type, and then we're going to take a minute to read through the different descriptions that we get. Jordan will put those catchy titles into a poll. We'll vote for one that we love. And the library will actually carry through with that, with their $100 budget and their 2 staff hours. Ultimately, of course, the library staff gets the ultimate say. If we vote for an initiative that actually ends up costing thousands of dollars, they won't be able to follow through with it. But as long as we hit our parameters and it doesn't violate any policies, it stays in mission with the library we'll play with our initiative. And won't that be fun to see your initiative come true? So I'll be quiet and let you start thinking, what could the library do with $100 in 2 hours to keep the outlook improved of people that use services? I feel like I should have Jeopardy music playing.
I could hum it for you if you'd like.
I was doing that, and I don't think anybody's happy about it. We'll let them work. Remember to give your initiative or action that the library could take a short, catchy name. And you can go into chat and start typing your short, catchy name. And in the same chat text us a concise description so that as we read it, we understand what your idea is so we can vote on it. And are we all ready to start typing? Go. Type. Catchy name, brief description. Let's see what we come up with. And make sure you're to, in the chat, it says to all panelists and attendees so that we can all read each other's work and know what the different ideas are. Carolyn's giving a shout out and some love to the library. I love it, Carolyn T. Carolyn V, is that the title of yours, Burst Bubbles? I might need a more description of it to understand what it is about. short, catchy title and a brief description of what the library could do. Their hearts content. Thank you, Carolyn. And the title's Burst Bubbles, not always bad. Yeah, great. Okay, let's have some more. What else do we have out there? I know we've got Carolyn T and K in the group. If someone would prefer to share aloud, you're welcome to raise your hand. Jordan will let you explain yours aloud and I can type it in for you. If you're really stuck, think about those 21 strategies. Maybe one of those strategies will kind of spark a creative idea for you, for the library. Thank you, Jordan. I'll give you about 1 more minute. Would love to hear from some more. Carolyn's going to win by default, which is not a bad idea. I love the idea, but let's have at least one more idea here if we can get one. We just don't want Carolyn to feel like she's getting the consolation prize. No prize, by the way. Don't get your hopes up. The prize is your initiative. You guys can keep typing. We'll hold the voting for a little bit. Why don't I open the floor to questions, comments, suggestions that you have, or thoughts and reflections that you all have. The floor is open to your questions while we give people who might still be formulating their initiative a little more time. What thoughts or questions do you have for me? Did I answer all of your questions? Jordan, are they always this quiet during Q&A?
Sometimes, sometimes not.
Oh.
I think they're soaking it in since you're so great at it.
Soak it in, folks. How to stay positive during constant change? That's a great question, actually. Yeah. I think that when we, a couple of things. I think that it's that framing again, like the look for the blue, look for the green. If we frame change as something frightening or something intimidating, it's really hard to stay positive during it. So part of it is listening to that self-talk about how we think about change. Do we think of it, do we say we have to change, or do we say we get to change? Do we say not again, or do we say a new adventure? So, you know, it's part of that framing and catching ourselves when we hear the negative self-talk around change. But I also think there's something to knowing what skill sets are required to be flexible and adaptable in times of change, and then make sure that we're building those resiliency and change adaptability skill sets. So, for example, we could take a different route home from work or from the grocery store every day for 5 consecutive days, because it forces us out of our routines so that we get a little more accustomed to living things, dealing with things that feel different. Or I just started wearing my watch on the other wrist as a way of saying, okay, look, I can deal with small changes. I'm a flexible human. I can deal with this stuff. And just to build up sort of my change tolerance. And then I think there's also a part of change that makes us most uncomfortable is this ambiguity that comes with change. Like just the unknown is so frightful. So I think reconsidering situations in our lives where we have had to sit in ambiguity and we survived just fine, I think those are good reminders to ourselves at that time. And then of course there's a lot of research around when we make change fun, we're much more likely to embrace the change. So finding ways to make it fun, find that joy. I see Carolyn has added another initiative for us, the Clip It initiative, where we would have a group of various age groups find and save a bunch of video clips or story clips that make that person feel good. And then these can be put into a database for others to see, or could be put in the library's website for, I need to feel some good visuals. Okay, good.
And this is a different Carolyn.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So Carolyn T has Clip It, and Carolyn V has Burst the Bubble. So we've got a couple of different options on the board here. Are there other questions for me while people are finishing up their initiatives? We've got some time for some more questions if you had more. If someone is still working on an initiative idea, maybe just either private text Jordan or raise your hand so that she sees it and knows that you're still working, and we can give you a couple more minutes if you need. And I can answer questions during that time. One of my personal strategies to stay positive. Yeah, I use a lot of these, but my favorite is the gratitude journal. So I started keeping a gratitude journal probably 20 years ago. So there are 3 entries for me almost daily for a 3 just short, I am grateful for 1, 2, 3, going back 365 days a year for 20 plus years. And I've kept all of those journals. And what I've realized is that gratitude sort of begets gratitude. So for example, on days when I am blue, I pull out old journals and flip through them. So recently I was having a bit of a blues in my shoes day, and I pulled an old journal out, and it said, I am grateful for baby Alexi. So Alexi is the son of a good friend of mine, and baby Alexi is now this 6'3", 18-year-old high school senior planning his future, driving a car that he just bought. You know, it's like, I felt so grateful, not just for baby Alexi, but for the Alexi he's become, and for being engaged with that family's life all through those years, and all the fun stories that we've had throughout those years. And just having that little printed, handwritten baby Alexi sparked all of that. So definitely the gratitude journal is my favorite, but everybody gets to choose their own favorite. For some people, the gratitude journal either just doesn't do it for them, or it works, but works differently. One of the people that tested gratitude journal for me said that he really couldn't bring himself to write 3 things down every day. He just wasn't a big journal keeper. But he said he did decide he would come home and tell his wife 3 positive things every evening after work. And he said knowing that he'd made that commitment meant that all day he was kind of thinking, well, what could I tell her? What could be on my list of 3? And what could be on my list of 3? So all day he was looking for good. So instead of all day just finding the negative, he suddenly made this shift to looking for the good. So he used it differently, but it still had that same powerful impact as my journal does for me. How about you? What are some of your favorites? Carolyn says, thanks for the ideas. It made me think outside of the box. Even the idea of wearing my watch on the other had to build some change tolerance. Yeah, absolutely. There's some great change information out there. It's an old text, but Sacred Cows Make the Best Burgers. It's an odd name, but the authors there hit on some of the top traits that we might need. Your library probably has that book or can get it for you through the interlibrary loan. So yeah, and I'm sure there's some things in the LinkedIn library that you could find on managing change, that experiencing change yourself. I know there are things on leading in times of change. I have a class on communicating in times of change, but it's more when lots of changes are happening. You're not necessarily the one that's initiating the change, but you have to communicate the change. So there's a lot of interesting work in that space. All right, well, Jordan, should we vote on an idea?
All right, let me try it here.
We're experimenting with polls. So here we go. We have 3 initiatives, and everybody, whether you put an idea in or not, everybody gets a vote. Let's all vote here. Oh, I can't vote. Oh, it says panelists cannot vote. I'm a panelist. Okay, fine. I don't get to vote.
I could go back and restart it. I think I could go back and add that in.
No, it's fine.
Okay, okay.
It's fine. I just wanted to make sure everybody else could vote. We can live without mine. I was going to vote for bring Brenda back, of course. No, I'm kidding. Once Jordan sees that most of you have had a chance to vote, and remember, and the 2 are in here in your chat, if you need a reminder of what the 2 ideas are: bursting bubbles, having library patrons go outside and blow soap bubbles to their heart's content, and clip it, having a group with various age groups find and save video clips or story clips that make that person feel good, and then making those available in a library database or website for when people have an I need to see something that makes me feel good moment. Which one do you vote for? Yeah, Carolyn, I see your comment about the teachers. It is, yeah, certainly. I'm glad you're retired right now. You can just bring your positivity and your encouragement and your love to those who are still teaching, because it's rough.
Okay, I think most have voted here. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. Should I go ahead and share the results here?
Sure, if you want to. It looks like Clip It is our initiative. Woo! There we
Thank
go.
you.
Thank you. All right. Well, Jordan, we'll have to hear a report back from you maybe at the next event in the series to see what happens.
Sure thing. I think we could actually accomplish the other 2 as well. Why not?
Little budget, you could do it, right? Well, let me just wrap up by saying I'm so grateful that all of you were here, that you shared your ideas with us, that you kind of thoughtfully played with these 21 strategies. I would love for you to stay in touch. So I've put my LinkedIn information up there. You could just, if you go onto LinkedIn and just find Brenda Bailey-Hughes, you'll find me there. And then if you're not a big LinkedIn user, that is a good excuse to get onto LinkedIn, is that I can stay in touch with you. I can follow your careers. I mentioned a lot of courses in the Learning Library. This one called Communication Foundations. It's about the 4th one down on the right-hand side. It's actually available for free. You wouldn't even have to be logged in through the library to get it free through the end of the month, because it just made it into the top 20 courses. So I'm real proud and excited about that.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yay. But again, your library has a subscription to LinkedIn Library. So all of these courses and thousands of others are available to you through your library. Take advantage of that resource. Corporations and probably libraries too pay a lot of money to have those subscriptions, and you don't have to pay it to have access to it because of the wonders that are public libraries. So any last questions for me before we wrap up tonight? We have a minute or 2 left here. I want to make sure I give Jordan the floor for the end. right. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your evening. Good luck with the rest of the series. It looks like you've got some awesome things lined up.
Yes, we have a few more coming up. Give me just a moment here. All right, well, first off, thank you, Brenda. That was wonderful. Let me turn my video on just to say. So again, once again, the library is back open. In the meantime, we do have some more webinars coming up, September all the way through December. Please take a look at our events calendar online. For the next career webinar, it's going to be resume and cover letter basics. I'll be providing that. And that's next Tuesday, September 8th at 7 p.m. And again, we have a lot more webinars related to our business series, our tech series, our crafty adult series, our writers workshop. So again, take a look at our online calendar. And then we do have LinkedIn Basics coming up, Job Search 101, how to create a CV. That's one that a lot of people have been asking me about. So we'll be presenting that. And then once again, yeah, the library is open. So come see us. We could still do Book a Librarian we've been doing Zoom, Skype, whichever platform you're comfortable with. We are meeting with people in the library, but we are limiting that time to about 15 minutes. So if you have a Zoom meeting, you can still talk to us, see our faces, hear our voices. And that's pretty much it here. So thank you all for coming. If we have any more questions here, stick around for just another minute. A lot of people telling you thank you, Brenda. All right, then. I think we can go ahead and end this webinar. Thank you again, Brenda. I hope everyone has a great night. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.